AEW has been searching to restore the feeling for quite some time now. And I got to say, I think they're on the path now. I know the ratings don't quite reflect it. I know the ratings have been dipping. But I don't think that it's due to lack of story. I think the stories are there. I think they're doing some of the best television that they've done in their short history. I think right now, Mariah May, Tony Storm is the best story in all of wrestling. I think right now the Death Rider story, I know this is an unpopular opinion, but I think this is a great story. This has piqued a lot of people's interest. A lot of people are curious where it's going, whether they're talking bad about it, they're talking good about it, they're talking. And as we know in wrestling, that is the most important thing, is emotion and getting people to react. I think AEW is on the path of restoring the feeling. And if I had to guess, I think this is going to continue to happen. I think they're on the right path. I don't think they're going to sway off. I think they're on the path that they need to be on. I think part of the reason the ratings have been dipping is I truly do think that them losing CM Punk hurts, of course. But I don't think it's all due to CM Punk. I think part of it is WWE is hot right now. And I think with WWE being hot, interest has naturally declined in AEW because a lot of people didn't want an alternative. They just wanted WWE to be better, and I think they're proving that now. I don't think people aren't tuning in due to lack of stories. I know that's often a criticism of AEW, but they are telling tremendous stories. If people give it a chance, the stories are there. And I mean, let's start with the Death Riders. There are some good, there's some bad. I'm not going to say the Death Riders have been tremendous. I think there is some contradictory going on, but it doesn't mean that the appeal isn't there. First up, Moxley, the mission statement was kind of to bring younger talent up. The talent that is in the same place that they were 5 years ago, right? We saw that with his feud with Orange Cassidy, Darby Allin. He's trying to get these young guys to step up, which doesn't make him a heel, in my opinion. That made him the ultimate babyface. He was trying to pull these guys to the next level. He saw something in them that maybe they didn't even see in themselves, and he was trying to pull it out of them, get them to reach the next level. Ultimately, I think here's part of the problem. Darby's going to hike Mount Everest, as we know. I think Darby was originally slated to probably be the one to dethrone Moxley, but now, with him being gone for several months, that story's going to lose its luster, and somebody else might step up to the plate. Here's the problem. I think that person that's going to dethrone Moxley now is Copeland. Adam Copeland. Cope, whatever you want to call him. But I will say this. There's some good and there's some bad with that. I think Cope versus Mox is truly a dream match. I think that is one of the best matches AEW can put on for appeal, intrigue, maybe get some lapsed AEW fans, maybe get some people from WWE to tune in that haven't watched AEW ever or in a while. I think Cope vs. Mox is tremendous. They're both great mic workers. They're both good in the ring. They can tell tremendous story, and they have been telling a good story. But the whole mission statement of the Death Riders was to get a young star to step up, an AEW original. Now, with that being said, how does a 50-something-year-old WWE legend dethroning Moxley fit in? It kind of doesn't. And I think that's part of the issue. I think that's why some people have a criticism of the Death Riders. On one hand, I understand that. On the other hand, I'm just glad we're getting Cope versus Mox. I know this match is going to be tremendous. There's no way it won't be. But I do think Moxley being hesitant or scared to actually accept the match with Cope, I don't think that's a good sign either. Because I didn't like Moxley being a coward. I like Moxley being a badass because that's always what he's been. I mean, he fits the look. That's how he's wrestled for years. That's just his personality. I don't really like him being a coward heel. Now, with that being said, do I actually think Cope's going to dethrone him? I really do. I think at Revolution, Cope is going to be the new AEW champion for a couple minutes until Christian Cage cashes in, which also falls within the problem. If Christian Cage cashes in, so within the same night, we're going to have two different 50-year-old superstars, wrestlers, become AEW World Champion. That doesn't fit the Death Rider statement. It truly doesn't. Now, with that being said, I do think Christian has been the MVP of AEW within the last year. I think he's been doing some of the best work. He's the most compelling character. He's been great. I have no issues with Christian walking out AEW champion. I have no issues with Cope winning the AEW world title. But my problem with it is that it defeats the mission statement of the Death Riders. That's where I think people are tuning out with the Death Riders. I think they want these guys to step up, these young guys, and they're still not stepping up. I do think that's part of the problem with AEW. And then the stars that have stepped up, like Will Ospreay, Hangman Page, these guys aren't even near the world title picture. They're off doing their own things. I think something needs to be rallied here. I think we need to get the AEW originals back involved, or Moxley needs to drop the whole gimmick of trying to get these young guys to step up. Because it's just not aligning. Do I think it's a bad decision to put the world title on Cope? No, absolutely not. Obviously, his TNT title run got cut short due to his injury. I think he should have had a world championship run in WWE with his comeback. I was surprised they didn't do that. So I wouldn't fault AEW for putting the world title on him. I think Christian versus Edge versus Cope, that story still exists. I think people still want that story to be told. Even though we have seen some of it, I think people are still invested in that story. So I think if Christian is the one to take the world championship off of Cope at Revolution with cashing in, I think people are definitely involved. Are people online going to say we have a 50-year-old AEW champion? Yeah, of course, that's going to happen. But these guys are still stars, and these guys can still go. And I do know that's part of the issue that some people have. Oh, it's old WWE wrestlers still in the spotlight. If they're still the best, they're still the best. That's the reality of it. Tony Khan's not going to book the best wrestlers to be low on the card just because they used to work somewhere else. That just wouldn't make any sense. Use your tools. Use your superstars. If you follow any other sport, it would be silly for a team not to sign a player because he played for a different team. It'd be silly not to use him. So I view AEW as the same thing. And I mean, look at Moxley. People loved him. People still do. I think people definitely still appreciate his work. I mean, he's kind of been the face of AEW. It's just right now some people aren't quite invested with this character, and that's fine. But I do think AEW is going down the right path here. I think they need to align the path, though. They need to make sure that Moxley isn't talking about calling up these young guys anymore. Moxley just needs to be talking about he's the AEW champion and who's going to step up. That's where I think the direction needs to head. And I think they're going down that right path. I truly think AEW right now is telling one of their better stories with the Death Riders, with Cope, and this feels like a world championship feud. This feels like something that should main event a pay-per-view. This feels like something I would hand $50 over to see. So I think they're doing a tremendous job there. And then even with the Women's World Championship, I already mentioned Mariah May versus Toni Storm is the best story in all of wrestling. I don't even think that's up for debate. I think the work both of those ladies have done has been tremendous. Whether it's cosplaying each other, Toni Storm being timeless, just everything. The character work, the matches, I think they have absolutely killed it. And I do think Toni Storm's going to win the World Championship back next week at Grand Slam Australia. But the two storylines they have with the World Championships is great. I couldn't ask for any more. The World Championships feel important. Even though Moxley's not running around showing the world title, that is one of my criticisms of the Death Rider story. The World Championship should be visible. It shouldn't be hiding in a briefcase. But other than that, I think these truly feel like World Championship feuds, World Championship stories. I know when Mercedes won the TBS title, there was some talk of why didn't she go after the World Championship? It's going to overshadow the World Championship. That's not the case. That is not the case. And I think Mercedes being TBS champion versus Mariah May being world champion, I think this tells you it's not the stars drawing this. It's the story. If you tell the right story, nobody cares that you were a star, that you are a star. If you're telling a bad story, people are not invested. And I do kind of think that's what's happening with Mercedes. I think her storylines are lacking. I think she's relying on past stardom. Whereas Mariah May and Toni Storm are telling a story week after week after week. And this has been going on for a long time. And good on them. Long-term storytelling. And they are hitting it right on the head here. MJF. He's targeting Jeff Jarrett. Then he has Dustin Rhodes. I think MJF being a modern-day legend killer is great. That's a great place for MJF. I know some people are starting to call MJF mid. Some people are saying he deserves more. It's coming. We see it's coming. He went face-to-face with Hangman. They've had their interactions. Is that feud probably going to happen at All In? That'd be my guess. But let it cook. Let it simmer. It needs time. I think right now, MJF taking out old legends that we love is a great place for him. I think it's a great place for the legends too. Truthfully, I think Jeff Jarrett being in a feud with somebody like MJF, I think that does have a place on this card. I know some people say that it doesn't, but it does. In my opinion, it really does. I think Jeff Jarrett, Dustin Rhodes, they will do tremendous work for their characters to be in the ring with somebody like MJF, to have the promo battles with MJF, to have the matches with him. I have no issues with this. As long as MJF's victorious. I mean, if Dustin Rhodes or Jeff Jarrett starts beating MJF, then we'd have a problem. But as long as he's beating these guys down, he's telling the story, he's the legend killer of modern day, then there's no issues. Speaking of Hangman, as I said, I mean, he has been one of the best characters in AEW too. I mean, you could make the argument he is the best character. I do think eventually we're going to get his face turn. Right now, I think he's starting to lean already towards the face, but I think he's going to get fully turned by All In, and I think MJF versus Hangman Page is going to happen. And I think there should be some gold on it. It doesn't even have to be the World Championship. As we know, AEW has several titles floating around. But I do think that's going to be one of your big matches at All In. I mean, we're only a couple months away. I know it's February, that's in July. We're 5 months away. The build can start now. Let it cook. Have time. I also think Ospreay teaming with Omega is exactly where AEW needs to be right now, too. Showcasing their stars. Showcasing these guys that can draw these other people in. Ospreay and Omega, you turn the TV on, you see them wrestling, you're not going to turn away. If these guys wanted to go after tag team titles, I wouldn't have an issue with that. Them feuding with the Don Callis family makes sense. I got no problems. Them versus Takeshita versus Kyle Fletcher. Obviously, that's going to be a great match. I think Ospreay right now has been killing it. I think he needs gold. And if that's a tag team title, that's a tag team title. Speaking of the tag team championships, Bobby Lashley, Shelton Benjamin. Honestly, at first, I wanted them to win the trios titles. I wasn't a fan of them winning the tag team championships. I wanted MVP to have gold too, but now that they have the tag team titles, I see the vision. I see why they're the AEW tag team champions. Them with the guns last night, they're showing importance on those titles that I think has been lacking for quite some time. Since Sting and Darby have been champions, to be honest. I don't think the Young Bucks title reign was great. Private Parties was unfortunately a dud. I do think now the tag team titles are going to start to be showcased again in a spot where they were. Because that was one of the big appeals of AEW when they first started, was the tag team division. And now we're getting back there. And I think this is perfect. Lashley, this is the first time he's ever been a tag team champion in his career. So it's good to see that element of Bobby Lashley's character. Will they eventually be trios champions? My guess would be yeah. But right now, them versus the Guns, sign me up. And then last but not least, Ricochet versus Swerve in the main event of Dynamite. Ricochet, he is showcasing some skills I didn't know he had. In WWE, all we've seen him was basically be a match guy. Flips, moments, things along that nature. So you thought he would naturally fit in AEW because that was kind of their style. And boy, has he naturally fit. And then he has exceeded expectations. He is showing character work I didn't know he had in him. Him as a heel is something I never would have thought would have worked. And he has proven me wrong. And he picked up the victory over a former world champion in Swerve. I cannot wait to see where this character goes. I do think Ricochet will be an AEW world champion one day. There's no doubt about it now. I thought he would either way. You know, coming into Dynamite, coming into AEW, I thought he would. But after Dynamite last night, picking up a win like that, showing some more layers to his character, Ricochet deserves this, and I think he will be world champion within a year. He is too good. And then as for Swerve, ever since he lost the title, he has been kind of on a losing streak. I'm curious where this is going to bring him. At what point is he going to turn the ship around and start picking up some victories? But right now, losing to Ricochet, that doesn't hurt Swerve at all. It does not hurt Swerve at all. I think Swerve is over. He's one of the biggest stars in AEW. Losing to somebody like Ricochet is perfectly fine right now. But we need to see where Swerve's going to go. I'm curious to see what Swerve's match is at All In. I think that'll be a good tell to see where they view him. Because I do think they view him as one of their top stars. And I think they will put the rocket back on him. And I think they will co-sign him as being the face of AEW. Guys, thank you for watching. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe.